Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That'll just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, and we are broadcasting live. We are ready to go and ready to rock and roll on this beautiful, wet and rainy Tuesday. What day is it? It's Wednesday. That's right. Hump day, middle of the week, ready to go, downhill slide all the way to Firearms Friday, which will also be a big show today, this week. It's going to be a good stuff. All right, you guys all ready to dive into it? We've got a humdinger lined up today, including we've got in hour 2, gubernatorial candidate Bernadette Wilson will be joining us to talk about everything that's going on here in the state, her thoughts on where we're going to end up fiscally, financially, and just give us kind of her thoughts on the overall status of the state. And we are we're going to be talking with her in hour 2. In hour 1, we've got some interesting stories that are going to be kind of laid out here this morning to talk about, including some of the stuff that went on at the end of the legislative session that I'm just now getting caught up on. Luckily, I've got some folks who are helping me out going through some of the floor sessions and audios and things that I just hadn't had a chance yet to kind of sit down and watch. I mean, it's part of the problem with the way the session runs out and what's going on, and it happens during the day, and we don't always have time to go through every minute of what happened down in Juneau. So sometimes we're playing catch up. Sometimes we're playing catch up on this, and this is one of those cases where there was a very interesting commentary kind of about the whole system in general. But we're going to get into that here in just a little bit, and we'll be diving into that as well. Plus some other stories that are going on across the state, including this. I hadn't even heard about this. They're talking about putting in a new Bitcoin mine up on the North Slope that would utilize a large chunk of the abandoned natural gas, and this is some interesting stuff. I want to talk a little bit about that, and also, of course, the latest on this federal disparity test when it comes to education funding. You probably have heard a little bit about this. This all took place essentially after the big blowout about HB 57 and the education funding. The federal government came back and said that they were cutting $81 million in federal funding because of the the funding disparity formula, which we're gonna get into as well. Which I mean, I gotta say, this is again part and parcel of the problem in becoming dependent on federal money. There's always a hook somewhere, right? There's always there's always some kind of catch in there that will make you do things that you may not necessarily want to do. You may get that feeling like, oh, look at all this free money, man. There's a lot of free money out here. We could take this and it'll be fine, just fine. And then later on, you're like, well, we took the money, but now we can't do some of the things that we want to do because that money had contingencies and things on it. And so we're just, oh, sorry, can't do it. To which I have some questions about how good it is to have some of this free money. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to start off though here first with it's an interesting discussion from Suzanne Downing over at Must Read, where she makes some points here that I think are kind of interesting. And she kind of takes a look at it and makes a note and makes a point of showing that, you know, all the years that the permanent fund dividend is up are always on election year. I mean, I'm not saying that they're politicizing the PFD, but maybe they're politicizing the PFD. It's been 2016 since that's when the legislature decided to start setting the amount of the PFD. Well, 2016 was when Walker cut the first one in half, essentially. But since then, they've basically been deciding what is a good dividend and what isn't. And a lot of times they'll do this political maneuvering or this machination where they will say, well, we've got some extra money, but we don't want to call it a dividend. So what we do is we'll call it energy relief, right? So then we can say, well, the dividend was always low, but this year we had some extra money, and so we're going to call that energy. We don't want to call that a dividend because we don't want you to come back next year and say, well, my dividend was $2,800 last year, and now it's $1,000. What happened, right? So they can look in the eye and say, well, it was $1,000, but there was $1,800 in energy relief. But that's just a one-time thing, right? So they're politicizing it. But Suzanne Downing does make the point that as you look back at the different years here over the last, since they started this madness, I guess over the last 8 years, the PFD amount has really only gone up significantly when it's an election year, including that big one in 2022 where it was like $3,200 a person. And so, it just again smacks of the political motivations that are in there and how these machinations work. So what struck me was, one, that it was interesting to see exactly how politicized this whole thing, is from that perspective. But two, it reminded me of this whole idea that somehow the energy relief is in there only as a temporary, again, but it's only happening when they really want to boost it up, but they don't want you to treat it like it is this is really the full dividend. Because again, they don't want people to come back and go, but I got a dividend that was this big last year, and they can go, no, it's not all dividend. That was energy relief. Even though it all comes from the same pot of money, even though it all is this, basically the same stuff, because they can label it different, they could then say, well, but see, that's just the dividend is guaranteed. The dividend is forever. But that energy relief, that's just if we have some extra money or we feel good about it or we want to get reelected this next year, right? So I mean that makes it all better. That makes it all better. Whereas again, if we were actually working on the original formula, the statutory formula, the 5-year rolling average of the whole, all the bells and whistles, the dividend would always have been larger and we would always be, looking at a pretty sizable chunk. It would also reduce the legislature's ability to spend freely on whatever other project that they want to spend it on. Because that's essentially what they've done. I don't want to get too pedantic here, but for those of you who, maybe have just joined the program in the last few months and don't understand how that whole thing works, the dividend itself is supposed to have, according to the documents that were written and the conversations and the debates on the floor when they put the whole dividend program together, the dividend is supposed to have first call on the revenue. It's supposed to be the first priority of funding. So the state gets all their royalties and their monies and everything from the oil companies and all that kind of stuff. The dividend diverts 25% of the royalty money from, every year, and 25% is deposited into the corpus of the fund, of the permanent fund itself. And then the way the statutory formula was worked was that every year money would spin out from what the earnings, right? The money's returned, and it would spin out into the earnings reserve account, and the money would accumulate there. And after the first 5 years, they ran a 5-year rolling average and said, okay, here's how much the dividend is. The average return, the average amount of money over 5 years is here. And that 5-year rolling average was a way to kind of even out the highs and the lows, because obviously oil is a very volatile commodity. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to create some stability in there. And that's why they put that 5-year rolling average in. And that worked out well for us for 40 years. And then, of course, what happened was Bill Walker vetoed half of the dividend amount in 2016, because he could do that through line item. The legislature did not stand up to him. There was no vote to try and override his veto. They didn't even attempt it. And so half of that money, about $780 million, just sat in the fund. And for the next 2 or 3 years, that money just continued to sit in that fund and build up and accumulate. And then finally, about 3 years, about 2019, the legislature decided to go ahead and tap into that and use it for government spending. And that's how we got where we are today. That essentially, they've taken our dividend and they're utilizing it to pay for other programs and spend on other things. And so it should be no surprise to you that the permanent fund has now become politicized, and you can track election years based on the amount of the dividend. If it's a big election year, boy, they better make sure they get you a good dividend that year before, right? If you know you're going to get a dividend in October and the election's in November, you better make sure that you got a good dividend set up for that year. And but again, they're putting all these bells and whistles in it, like, oh, it's a energy relief. It's not really, your base dividend's only $1,000, or your base dividend's only $1,400, but you did get this extra $385 in energy relief for each person, so that's important, right? It just surprises no one. It just surprises no one. What is going to be a surprise, in my opinion, is probably this next year with a $1.5 billion deficit, whatever the deficit ends up being. I mean, I think right now it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, with oil prices as they currently sit, about $1.5 billion. If oil goes even further, I mean, Katie bar the door. It could be a $2 billion deficit. We don't know at this point. But I think you'll find that next year we'll be lucky to have a dividend at all. I think if we do end up with a dividend, it will probably be a sub $500 dividend. And then that would mean that the following year, the dividend would probably be gone. But I fully expect, this being the first year of the big short, that we're going to see no dividend. And so then it won't be politicized anymore, right? I mean, there's got to be a silver lining to everything at this point. It won't be politicized because it just won't be there. There just won't be anything left. All right, we're going to continue here. I want to talk a little bit about, I want to talk about this new regulation that's being considered by the Alaska State School Board. And this all has to do, again, with equity funding, making sure everybody is, I guess, equally miserable. That's what we're talking about. Everybody's got to be equally miserable with this disparity test. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. All right. What are we doing here? Let me go back up here and good morning. Good morning. Okay. Cindy says Senator Bjorkman will be giving an update at the joint chamber meeting at Kenai today. No softball questions. She goes, non-softball questions are okay. Here we go. 2016, the year people in legislation decided to not follow the laws on the books. Well, of course not. They had their own agenda. Yeah. What are you talking about getting tied in knots? I don't know. I thought I was pretty clear there, Harold, but maybe that's where it is. Give Walker credit. The fund is at $80 billion due to Walker. Well, sure. That's like walking into my house and stealing all my money and going, give me the credit. Look at my bank account. It's big. I mean, I took all the money from Dukes, but I mean, it's big. Right? Oh my gosh, Henry, what are you screaming about this morning? Received the vaccines and the tsunami of death and wow. Okay, Henry, read the room, my friend. Anthony said he was fighting with his coffee machine this morning. He said, I've got no idea why my wife insists on buying these K-Cup pods. If I were awake enough to operate an F-16 instrument cluster, I wouldn't need the coffee. Let's see. Board of Fisheries. Yeah. Okay. Dukes has money? Question mark. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it was an example, Brian. Maybe not a good example, but it was an example. Brian also says that's why he uses a French press. That's why I use a fresh press. Less chance of failure. If I can start a fire, I can make coffee, which allows me the clarity of mind to resolve why the rest of my day is a mess. Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, coffee makers should not be difficult. I mean, percolators do work well. Just in case you were wondering, percolators still work fantastic. I guess I should turn the comments on there. I forgot to put them on the screen this morning because it's a whole other button that you got to push to get things going. All right. So all caught up. You guys ready to go? You guys feeling good? Feeling fine? Feeling smooth? I'm really intrigued about this whole disparity test, this equity test that the federal government has put on the state of Alaska, and the ramifications of it. And I've got some questions about this. Like, why would we want to take money where it basically ties our hands later on? Hey, look at that. Look who got the thing working. All right. So we're about to rejoin. See how it is? Wow. Don't ask me how I did it because I still don't know. What exactly did I turn on or turn off? Or was it just that I turned everything on and off again? I don't know. But I finally got it to work. So there you go. Pretty exciting stuff, wasn't it? Pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show.
Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Yeah, I should give credit where credit is due. A lot of help yesterday from the chat room after the show. As I mentioned on Monday or yesterday on Monday, I updated something here in my system in my studio, and updating one thing caused everything else to break. And so I spent a bunch of time fixing it on Monday night, or so I thought, but I still had there were still a few wonky things yesterday. And then some of my listeners who stuck with us on the chat room, they were kind enough to hang out with us after the show so that I could test audio, so they could tell me what they could hear, what they couldn't hear, and everything else. So big kudos out to them for all the folks who stuck around late yesterday to help out with that. I hope we've got everything laid out. I hope we've got everything all squared away. So we'll fingers crossed today goes without a hitch. I want to talk about this disparity test. So we heard about this, I guess it was late last week was the first time we heard about the fact that the federal government was now going to come in and put they were going to take away $81 million and that they were federal dollars that they were used to fund schools. The state of Alaska could be on the hook for that $81 million after they failed a federal equity test early in. So people are like, what is the equity test? Now, it had impact aid, right? So impact aid, and I'm going to try and walk you through this as best I can. So impact aid is distributed to states to compensate for federal land that is not taxable. So this is PILT, right? Payment in lieu of taxes, essentially. Because the land is not taxable and they don't contribute local property taxes, they receive this impact aid, which could then be used, and typically it's used to prop up the schools. Well, at one point, the federal government decided that to get all this, you needed to have and to be able to use it for federal or for education, you needed to have what they called a disparity test. Now, this is, again, probably one of the most, this is probably the most perfect example of what is wrong with government in general. When you start talking about, government is just basically the premise that you're trying to make everybody equally miserable, right? All the outcomes are the same. There's no winners and losers. Everybody is equally miserable. Because the idea behind the impact aid, then they attach a disparity test to it. So here's what they do. The disparity test, the state has to pass. It looks at how much is spent per student in each district. Then they remove the top 5% and the bottom 5% of those two categories. So you're left in the middle with the 90% in the middle. The difference between the remaining schools from the bottom to the top of those remaining 90% can be no more than 25% from the bottom to the top. So if the bottom one is $100 million, then the top one can't be spending any more than $125 million. Now, regardless of how what the geography looks like, the thing, regardless of any kind of thing that's going on in the community or the school, whether it's got local taxes that are paying for it or anything else. And this is what always kind of made me scratch my head. This goes back to when you hear somebody talking about schools, that there's a local contribution cap, right? That the boroughs or the municipalities can only give money up to a certain point to the schools. And you're like, but why? Why would you? If a community has decided that they want to go full throttle, gold-plated bathroom fixtures, everybody gets an iPad. I mean, if they really want to go full bore, and they've decided as a community that they want to do that, then why shouldn't they be able to do that? Well, because it's just not fair, apparently. And to make it so that everything's fair, that's why they offer this disparity. If you want to take our money, if you want to take our $81 million in funding, then everybody's got to be fair. Everybody's got to be equal. Which, again, I've never understood. If a community is a unorganized community or an untaxed community and they're getting all their education paid for by the state, well, then they got to live by what the state, if they want to organize and come together and tax themselves to make a better education system for their local communities, they should be able to do that. If the community wants to spend less on education, they should be able to do. That's the beauty of government that's closest to you, right? And if you're like, well, that's just not fair. What if there's somebody in a big community that wants to spend more, but their local community, well, then they can move to a community that does spend more on education. If that's what that's the beauty of the freedom of being able to say, well, I want to move from here to here for all the reasons, including the benefits of having a bigger. But no, see, the government says, if you're going to take our sugar, we're going to make sure that everybody is at the exact same level. Doesn't matter how much more you want to pour into it or how much less you might want to pour into it. So this federal impact aid is now at risk because apparently they've discovered a disparity. Now the state says no. But it doesn't matter because the government says no. So the Department of Early Education and Development is now proposing a new rule which will reduce the amount of money that local governments are able to contribute to their neighborhood school districts. So even if a local community wants to make up a difference, right? Even if the state is, the state has failed and they're starving us, even then, a local community can't make up the difference. Even if up until this point, they've had space in their cap where they could, they're going to reduce that. They're going to reduce the amount of money that local governments are able to contribute. And one of the ways that they're going to do that, by the way, is, which is the most ridiculous, is through what they call the, what do they call it? It's not in kind. It's local contributions to include services provided at no charge to the district by the city or borough. So that means that anytime a school activity takes place at a city-owned pool or the library or whatever, any kind of city or borough-run facility that's not part of the school district proper, that doesn't cost them anything extra, doesn't take any, that they would now have to charge the school district a rent or fees or whatever, and those fees would then be subtracted from the amount of money that the municipality would give to the school district for instruction. Are you sensing a problem here? Are you sensing a problem with, the kind of, again, the whole thing, we're going to make everybody equally miserable? Now, and I know this is probably just radical to say, I would be fine if they just left that disparity stuff alone. If a community wants to tax themselves an additional, I don't know, throw a number out there, 5 mils for education specifically, so that they have the tippity top, the most, the biggest, the best, the highest funded, they want to spend $50,000 a kid. If that's what they wanted to do as a community, then why wouldn't you allow that? Well, some people, they just want, of course, if you didn't like that, then you would move from that community to a community that more aligns with your goals, right? It's called volunteerism, by the way. And on the flip side of that, if you had a community that was like, we just need to have the basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, we don't need to spend $1 gazillion, it should just be $5,000-$6,000 a kid, and we'll call it good. And people could move to those communities, or people in those communities who wanted a better education, they wanted all the bells and whistles, they could move. I mean, this is the essence of, kind of that free market idea. Why wouldn't you do that? But instead, the federal government is now coming in and saying, you can't spend money on your own local schools. You can't do it because you took our filthy lucre, and now you can't do it. To which then I start asking the question, why do you keep sending your kids to these schools when this is the battleground? Why do you put your kids in the middle of all this stuff? Just find a different way at this point. But now we have no idea what's going to happen here. Is the $81 million, is it going to come in? Are they going to take it away? Because if they take the ability of some of these, because some places are already getting close to the cap. So are they going to have to reduce their local contributions? I know the KPPSD is like right up there near the cap. Are they going to now have to reduce those local contributions? And this will be another reason why they come back to us in the spring with the next session to say, well, now we need even more money from this, because the money could still come from the state. It just can't come from the community. which seems really counterintuitive to me. Really, really counterintuitive. All right. We're going to go. We're going to take one more break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the binding caucus. And I don't know if it's a cry for help, an explanation or what, but Jesse Bjorkman has an interesting speech on the floor. We're going to get to that here as well in just a minute. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Not with public money. Where does the public money come from? Oh, yeah, the public. I forgot. Guilt hash districts. That is, you're guilty of having rich districts. Is here. The disparity test is old law. It's what happens when you fund schools at different levels. See, I'm not saying that you fund schools from the state at different levels. You fund every school in the state at the same level. Boom. Then if the local communities want to, pitch in the pot, well, then go for it. Well, you can't do that. You only then study the law a little better. I'm not saying that it's. Oh God, you are so pedantic sometimes. Kevin says, yeah, but even the foundation formula has that baked into it so that no one school district can fund itself to be better, more attractive school via funding. Now they just do it by being a better district. Apparently they don't want parents to move their kids to a better district. Wait, huh? What? I know. I mean, competition breeds efficiency. But and I know that there's probably some kind of statute or regulation or law that, will prevent a lot of this. But in my mind, I'm always like, why wouldn't you want to be okay with any community who's like, we want to do more? You can't do more. You can't because that's unfair. What? If we want anyway. All right. Matsuburo proposing a fuel tax. If so, is heating oil included? I don't know. Lisa said before they closed Nikolaevsk, we asked if we could get donations to help keep our school alive, and they told us no. Okay. Right. Binding caucus. So Kim says that hit a nerve. Bjorkman's speech was on the HDR 14, the Anchorage Point Mac. Don't get ahead of me, Kevin. Don't get ahead of me. He said it violates civil rights. I don't understand how you could say that it violates. I mean, I understand that that's what the argument's going to be, and it's going to be something about, the federal. That's what the federal money. But how does it violate somebody's civil rights if they want? I mean, if they want to spend more on their kid, doesn't that violate civil rights as well? And if folks want to come in and be part of the better schools and I don't understand. I just don't understand. It's an interesting take. All right. So, we're going to get into this I'm not saying that it's not legal or illegal, or you can't have rich and poor districts across the state. Okay. They're doing such a bang up job right now. So there you go. What? The reference, the LGBTQ article in the Alaska Watchman State School Board meeting. Public money. But see, I mean, I understand that you're saying this is their argument. But if a community decided that they wanted to increase their own funding of their own schools, shouldn't it be allowed? And again, where does public money come from? It comes from the public. That's what I'm arguing. That if a community decided to tax itself an extra $1 or $2 specifically for schools, shouldn't that be allowed? And the argument we will know, so because some other community you might not do that. Well, but isn't that their choice as well? Right? I mean, that's the. I mean, I understand what Harold's trying to say, but, that's what and I understand. Yeah, never mind. I'm not even. It's not like I'm even trying to argue with Harold. I'm just trying to say my point is, it's wrong that if a community wants to tax themselves or contribute more, they should be able to. That's the point. There shouldn't be a restriction on that if they want to do more. So, I'm not saying it's the law. And I'm saying that the law should be changed. That was my point. Not saying that it's not lawful or illegal. You're, again, missing my point. All right, that's okay. It happens. Here we go. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
Okay, we're continuing on. And like I said, special thanks. There's some folks that helped me out. They've been scrubbing through a lot of the different video a lot of the different video that was on the floor from, the testimony and the different during the different speeches during each of the different bill hearings and everything. And because, I mean, I've got a full-time plus gig, right? So I can't always catch that. Luckily, folks are kind enough to share with me clips and thoughts. And it's like I have my own little research team, except I don't pay them, which is good. Anyway, so it was interesting when somebody sent me this, and I was looking through it and I was listening to it. And this is an interesting thing. And I'm not quite sure. It's a speech on the floor by Jesse Bjorkman, the senator from Kenai. And I'm not sure if it's a cry for help. I don't know if it's a little message held up while he's speaking that says, "Help me, save me," or if it is a full-in buy-in on the idea of the binding caucus. Now, Jesse is talking about HJR 14, which is the Port McKenzie rail extension. Now, this is a very interesting, if you followed along with this bill, there is some very interesting politicking going on behind the scenes on this. In one phase, or from one angle, it looks like this thing is being politicized and intentionally overloaded with monies, with an estimate of $250 million, when it doesn't necessarily need to be that high. And Kevin McCabe writes about that in Must Read Alaska back in April. He wrote about this, where they were kind of ballooning up the cost of the bill to try and what he thought would be to derail it. I mean, not to be too punny on a rail extension bill, but they were trying to derail it. Partially in part because the Port of Alaska doesn't want any competition. The Alaska Railroad Corporation, which is based in Anchorage, may not want to do anything. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons here. But to me, a railroad to Port McKenzie makes sense if for nothing else, as a backup to the main port of Alaska, right? The Port of Anchorage. Now, they've already done a bunch of work. They've already done what do they got? They've already completed, all the bridges are in place. They've got 25 miles of embankment already. They only have to do 7 miles of embankment and lay 32 more miles of track. But they've already done all the other stuff, and all the bridges are in place, which are probably the most expensive part of all this is all the bridges. That's all all they need to do is finish it. But there just seems to be this stonewalling going on. Now, I don't know if it's politics between, some of the legislators, and it got stuck in Wielechowski's committee. I don't know if Wielechowski's got a wild hair about it. If there is some kind of Anchorage versus Matsu thing going on, I'm not really paying. But this speech from the floor was interesting to me. And again, this is Jesse Bjorkman, who was speaking ostensibly in favor of the bill, but also he points out that in some ways it seems like he's kind of being held hostage over the binding caucus. Here's what he had to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on the resolution. I support the resolution. As chairman of the Transportation Committee, I quickly put it on our schedule when it came over to us. We heard it and we passed it out. I think it's a good idea. Unfortunately, what we have playing out here today is what I believe what happens when personalities and things that get said outside of this building, on the internet, family members get involved and say things one way or another about members of this body or other people in the building, and people take that personally. People take things personally when they get attacked about decisions that they made. And in the majority caucus, we have the rule of 11 that we all abide by.
The binding caucus.
And that says if you want something to come to the floor, you have to have 11 members in the caucus to have something come to the floor and be voted on. This is the exact reason why I am in the majority caucus, Mr. President, so that I can have a say to represent the will of my constituents in a better way. And I wish that more of my Republican colleagues would have joined me. And this is an exact reason why it is so valuable to have more people in a majority caucus so that we can get things done in a common sense fashion with voices from both sides of the aisle. Should this be an issue? I don't think so. I think we should hear this resolution, and I don't think it should be a big deal. And I think the board should be all green and we should move on. But the point is, because of politics and things that get said, sometimes some pretty awful, hurtful things, and people get ripped apart for one reason or another by family members of legislators or others. And that doesn't go over very well. And so people have big feelings about that. I'm willing to set those feelings aside so that we can do what's right for the state of Alaska. But we have the rule of 11 in the majority caucus. If we had more members of the caucus, we could count to 11 easier. But here we are. Thank you.
So he keeps going on. I mean, he's in favor of this bill, right? I think it should get out. I think it should be all green. I think we should get, everybody, so he obviously wants this out. And then he goes on to talk about how somebody's butt hurt, right? Somebody got their feelings hurt by something that somebody said, or something that somebody's family member said, or You know, I mean, it just seems like to me that there's a lot of thin-skinnedness going on out there. And because the caucus said member X's feelings are hurt, so we're not going to hear this bill. It almost like he's like, help me in a way. He's like, almost like, but then of course he advocates for everybody to come over and join the dark side. Oh, I just wish we could get everybody over here to join the dark side. But again, it's all about the feelings. It's all about the butt hurt. Oh, some really hurtful things. Well, what? I mean, are you adults? Have you not? Yeah, you need a friend, get a dog. I mean, are you here for results and to do the will of the people? Or are you, are we playing high school games about, does Susie really like me? Does Susie really like me? Oh, right? I mean, is that what we're talking about? Somebody said something mean to me, and so I'm going to kill their bill. Regardless of the fact that we've already expended. How much have we expended on this? It's money, man. We've already spent 200 and it's a chunk of money. We've already spent a couple $100 million. No, 184 million already spent. 184 million has already been spent, and everything else is just sitting there waiting. And whether you believe it's because they don't want the competition in Anchorage or what, but I mean, essentially what he's saying is somebody got their feelings hurt, and that's why we're not doing this. And if everybody just played nicer, we could get this passed. Well, if everyone was just adults about it, maybe we could get it passed there. And a call to say, well, everybody should join the binding caucus so that we could all kumbaya together, and then that would make it better. I don't believe that that's it. Come on. Are we adults or not? Somebody hurt my feelings, man. And it wasn't even Jesse. He was just pointing out that somebody, like I said, it kind of felt like one of those hostage videos where it was like, help me, man. Help me. All right, we got to go. Bernadette Wilson up next, The Michael Duke Show. Okay. I'm scrolling backwards here. The what? Who's opening up a transgendered surgery center in Southeast? Okay. I mean, more power to them, I guess, if that's what they want to do. Kevin says, keep in mind that the Alaska Railroad headquarters building is actually located in the Port of Anchorage area. Yeah. I mean, again, what just really got me was that, my feelings were, somebody's feelings were hurt by somebody else. Somebody's feelings were hurt, and that's why they didn't vote for it. And I'm just like, but is it better for people say stuff about me all the time, and I mean, it is what it is. Can we not just Tonic says there is always an Anchorage versus Matsu, but there shouldn't be when it comes to funding the future of the state. And again, we've already invested $184 million in this thing. Shouldn't we just get it across the finish line at this point? So that we have an alternative to the Port of Anchorage, so that we can maybe extend and put stuff up to the Northern Rail and avoid all the congestion down at the port. I mean, doesn't that just make sense to me? But yeah, it passed the House 40-0, and yet it got held up in the Senate. Somebody got their feelings hurt, man. Yeah. Somebody got their feelings hurt. What did Willie say? Willie said, you need to make more friends with staffers. I love staffers. I have quite a few that actually reach out to me with some interesting insight on some of these things. And that's how I got this. That's how I got this video. I didn't have time to watch all this stuff, but luckily some folks out there are dropping some of this stuff. Anyway, Kevin says he thinks it's he said that it was, he said interesting is that there was a Rule 48 move by Shower and Cronk to move HJ 48 out of Rules Committee. It was not even the vote on the resolution. I had 11 signatures of support, but they would not move it out of the Rules Committee. Wouldn't really say why. I suspect it was the Port of Anchorage versus Port Mac. It was HDR 14, not HDR 48. Yeah. I mean, again, if you've got the signatures and it passed the House on why wouldn't we do this? And why is and rules, when you say it won't move out of a committee, that's because the committee chair is holding on to it. And the committee chair of rules is Wilikowski. So what is going on there? Did he get called out and he got offended? Was it something earlier that happened? And it was a family member? Oh, Kevin, are there members of your family that are being mean to people? I mean, what is going on? I mean, wow. All right. I see that Bernadette is in the green room, but I see no audio or video. So I don't know if we should check that real quick. Bernadette, if you're listening, I now she's got some audio there. Let me add her audio to the stage here. We'll see. Can you hear me, Bernadette?
I can hear you. And we're going to try to figure out why we don't have video.
Okay. All right. Well, if nothing else, we have audio, so that's good. But yeah, if you want to figure out what's going on with your video, that's fine. Sometimes it's as simple as disabling and re-enabling the camera. But you can always rejoin. If you want to rejoin, quit and rejoin, you can do that as well. Oh, wait, something just happened. Oh, she disconnected. All right. So we'll get to, she disconnected something. So we'll come back to that here in just a moment. All right, my friends. That just makes me think that I probably should connect my phone just in case. I actually got my phone to connect yesterday too. So that worked out well. All right. Let me run my normal test to make sure the phones are working, and we'll go from there.
Oh, you.
Yep. Look at that. It's all good. All right. We're about ready to go. Let's get back to it. We're a minute out. We'll get things ready to rock and roll, and we'll be cooking things off right after this. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube-y things, and so much more. Let's get to it, my friends. Here we go.
Everybody, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us. It is it's hump day, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful hump day, and we're ready to go. We are ready to jump into this with both feet and get things going. We have got a we have got a special guest in for hour 2 today, and we're here to talk with Bernadette Wilson, who is again candidate for governor here in the state of Alaska, and we're going to bring her on the program right now because she's waiting in the wings, and we don't want to make her wait anymore. So let's go over here right now and get Bernadette on board to see what she has to say. Hello, Bernadette. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
You know, I am doing just fine. Fine, just fine, as the guys say. How's life on the campaign trail?
You know, it's going really well. It has been better than expected. Obviously, you know, we got into this race anticipating that we would have support. Otherwise, you know, we wouldn't have jumped in, but the support has really been overwhelming. And so we've been incredibly blessed. The team is doing an awesome job. They are rocking and rolling every day. It's we're having conversations with Alaskans, and we're raising money and all the things. So we're excited.
Yeah, and you guys have got a big kickoff going on this weekend, right?
We do. Sunday, June 8th. The doors will open at 2 p.m. and the program will start at 3 p.m. That information is up on all of our social media pages if anyone wants to check it out. But it should be a really great time. We've got an awesome lineup of speakers, entertainment, and a surprise announcement that is coming that day. So if anyone can make it, anyone and everyone, we'd love to see you at that rally. Sunday at 3 p.m. program starts.
Nothing like a good tease to get people excited and get them involved in the situation. That's for sure. Bernadette, you've been out, and it's going to be good. All right, I'll take I'm waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen. Where's the event going to be held, and again, what the location?
It will be over at Keith Monternock's hangar. And I will have to pull that exact address for you. I will be honest. Belanca Way over there is where it's at. 3720 Belanca Way, Unit B.
Okay. All right. So folks can find that out and get it checked out. And, of course, go over to your website and find out more. All right, Bernadette, you made the splash. People have obviously started to hear about you. You got some good press from a bunch of different folks. You got some interesting press for some other folks, including our old buddy Jeff Lansbury. I mean, this has been an interesting experience. What is the overall reaction? What are people are they excited? Are they frustrated? What are you hearing right now from folks?
Across the state, I think the sentiment seems to be frustration and feeling defeat. People are most certainly frustrated and again, it's something that we sensed, but being out on the campaign trail, we're hearing it a lot. And I'm hearing it from people that surprise me. I'm hearing it even from industry leaders. When we sit down and we have meetings, they're asking me, Bernadette, what do we do? Essentially, we don't even know if we trust the Republicans that are in Juneau. You could tell us that Republicans were controlling the House and the Senate, and we don't even know if we trust that they wouldn't come at us with an oil tax or something like this. And so that sense of frustration, that sense of lack of dependability and influx, I'm hearing even from development and even from the business sector. A lot of times we'll hear kind of frustration among the grassroots. That's where it will start. We will have elected officials that will pass it off as though, well, this is just the grassroots, they're being divisive. I can tell you hands down, the meetings that I have sat in, especially in the last couple of weeks since session has ended, I am getting that question even from different groups and industry leaders. I think when we start talking about the campaign and start talking about some of the ideas and the resolve to fix those same things that are leading to the frustration, all of a sudden we see people kind of light up and they get excited, and there's this sense of hope, and there's this sense of, we can do this again. Alaska is full. The individual people that make up Alaska are full of some of the strongest grit and determination that I know. For too long, I think it's been just kind of stepped on, and everybody's kind of trying to rein it in and tell them, you just don't know, you don't understand, or whatever it is. And I think that there's this excitement that things can change, and they know it is going to change. It's not just the possibility of change. I assure you, Michael, change is coming. It will be exciting for some, uncomfortable for others, but it is coming. So prepare yourself. Whichever side of the coin you're on, prepare yourself.
Yeah, no, change is coming one way or the other. We've talked about the fiscal cliff and everything else. I mean, change is coming. We're either going to slow it down and change it. It's going to change when we splat into the bottom of the. I think at this point is the whole my whole feeling on it. Bernadette Wilson is our guest candidate for Alaska governor. Bernadette, we've had a chance now to kind of settle in, to take a look at what the the post-mortem, I guess, if you will, of the session. And as an outsider now, but soon to be, maybe an insider on this, what's your overall take on the session and the legislative things have been playing out? What do you think needs to happen? I guess first we'll get your post-mortem take on this legislative session and where the state sits, kind of a state of the state from your point of view.
Yeah, well, as far as the legislative session goes itself, I mean, I've watched a lot of legislative sessions over the years. I think this was arguably one of the most frustrating, both for those in Juneau and for those of us that were watching outside. There seemed to be a lack of communication and collaboration, not only between both bodies, but from the administration to the different bodies, and quite frankly, even within, individual caucuses within those bodies. Obviously, I wasn't in the room. I didn't hear those conversations. That's the perception from the outside looking in. And it was very discouraging for the Alaskans that feel frustrated. I don't blame them. We elect people, we bust our butts, and we elect them to get down there to do a job. And the reason that people sacrifice their time and their energy and invest it into these candidates, the reason that they, donate to these candidates, the reason that they take time out of their day to go vote for those candidates is not for the easy votes. It's not for, Women's History Month and the random citations that they might hand out. It's for the big votes. It's for the big battles. And when you can't show up to the big battle because you're so worried about a compromise or somebody liking you, or you just don't understand this is as good as we could get, it starts to unravel. And I think that a lot of that is the lack of leadership at the top. in defense of legislators, I will say that I don't think they started this session with a clear sense of direction. Where are we going? What is the expectation? How are we going to get there? You know, by the time that it was made clear where we were going on education, we were, you know, within weeks of when session was ending. And quite frankly, it was after when session should have ended. And so you see all of this kind of dysfunction. And whether you look at, you know, the the state legislature, or you look at any other governments and societies, the downfall starts with lack of leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that a leadership direction. I mean, you know, people say, well, the governor's only one person and there's 60 oars in the water and everything. Yeah, but somebody's got to have their hand on the tiller. Somebody's got to lead the way. There may be 60 oars going in different directions, but at least you've got your hand on the tiller. You can at least point in the general direction that you need to on this. And I think that's what's important. That's why, I mean, Alaska has the strongest executive in the country. You know, the governor has more power and more direction than anything else. And you've talked about a few of the ideas that you would have as governor to help point us in that direction. We need that. And we need a governor who's engaged more than anything else. Because I think what the criticism that I'm hearing right now is that our current governor is just not engaging. The last couple of years has just been not a lot of down in the trenches, so to speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that you've got to get in there. You've got to take a very daily hands-on approach. Like I said, you have to have that constant communication with legislators. They need to know from your administration what the expectation is. You know, Michael, I've heard this argument. Well, I'm just the governor. I'm just one person. And to your point that the governor kind of steers that ship, you're not just one person. That's absolutely ridiculous. You have an attorney general who works for you. You have a whole handful of commissioners that work for you. You have one of the strongest lobbying arms, or should have, in the entire country. Not only do you have the strongest governorship, but you have all of these commissioners. You have all of this extra staff. The reason that we have heard from previous governors about, well, I'm just one person, quite frankly, that's on them. They have failed to take all of their team, all of their staff, and all of their, you know, values aligned legislators and collaborate. So if you're the governor and you feel like you've been out on an island by yourself, quite frankly, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Bernadette Wilson is our guest candidate for governor. We're coming up on the break. We're going to check our connection here and be right back with more Bernadette Wilson. Right after this, don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio will return right after this. Don't forget, you can always join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Michael Duke Show/live, or on YouTube or Rumble if you'd like as well. All right. Back with more right after this.
Listen to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because they're busting them too. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be bad.
You're a bad man.
Okay, Bernadette Wilson is our guest. I see that she got her video up, but I don't know if it's her connection or my connection today, but she got a little choppy there just a moment ago. So let me we'll see if maybe we can just let's see what the audio looks like here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, and it is, you're kind of going in and out on me, and I'm not sure. It says that I've got full bars and good. I'm in my office where I normally am. So, and I know you're in your same spot. So who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it could be. I've had some finicky stuff happen the last few days, so it very well could be me. I'll tell you what, Bernadette, I'm going to call you on this number here, and I'm going to use your video, but I'm going to mute your audio from the the video here. So your phone is ringing, and we'll see if there we go. Look at that. You can hear me. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you should. All right. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna want to turn off your speakers on your computer. Turn them speakers down so that we're not bouncing back and forth. And now you should just be able to hear me on the phone, and I should be able to just hear you on the phone as well.
All right. Yes, that is much better.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So we'll do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it here. We'll do it this way. So look at you. We're gonna. Sorry, that's the old Bill. It's the old Bill O'Reilly thing who's got going on. All right. Let me move this over here. Oh, now it doesn't want to let me swipe. So I'm going to make you number 1 and me number 2. And no. Oh, Bernadette, it's just one of those days. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go back over to here, and then I will just make you. We'll be co-equals. We'll be co-hosts today on this. So we go.
Oh, look at that!
Look at that. We're all good. All right. Well, I want to get into this here a little bit more. Talking about some of the things. Have you had to know that I sent CJ some information on the Permanent Fund Corporation going on with the Permanent Fund Corporation? Did you get a chance to take a look at that or listen to that or see what we were talking about there? Because I would love to bring that up today.
I don't know exactly what that was. No, I don't think I've seen anything.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fairly familiar with the Permanent Fund Corporation, but I don't know, is there recent news that happened there?
No, we were just talking about how, especially when you look at their current track record and what their returns have been, and comparing that, for example, to the Vanguard S&P 500 fund. And if we're spending almost $1 billion a year in management fees at the Permanent Fund Corporation, and yet we're getting a return in the sub 5% range. And yet Harvard, their endowment fund, they reported a 9.75% return, and they're managed, and they're just pegging it to the S&P 500, the Vanguard fund, and their management fees are minuscule. We're not getting the bang for the buck that we should be. The Brad Keithley went back and did some analysis on this, and he said if we pegged it to the S&P 500 starting back in 2021 or 2019, we'd be at $118 million in our permanent fund right now, and we wouldn't.
Wow, isn't that that is incredible? Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic, and it's one of the things that the governor controls over, because the governor controls he or she appoints the board of the permanent fund, and they can point the direction that the fund is going in. So, all right. Well, we're going to jump this here and get things going. Please like and share if you would. Like and share, like and follow, and ring the bell. Do all the YouTube-y things. Bernadette Wilson is our guest. We'll continue with her right here as we jump into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's get to it. I'm going to turn these comments off because they're right in the middle of her stuff here. And here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. We are continuing now. Bernadette Wilson is our guest candidate for governor of the state of Alaska. I mean, this is we got an early start here, which I'm excited about. I can't remember. It's been a while since we've seen a real long-term. I think the last time was Nick Begich, where he jumped out super early. And of course, Bernadette's ultimately familiar with that, as she was part of that campaign and helped get those things rolling on. Bernadette, some people say that we are, we're burned out, we're frustrated with politics. I think what we're burned out on and what we're frustrated on is politicians saying the same thing and never delivering, not getting things done. I think that's what we're burned out about and what we're frustrated about. We want something to change. Am I wrong? Is that what you're trying to bring here?
You are absolutely correct. Go ask somebody if they're burned out with the Trump administration. And as long as they're conservative and values aligned, they're going to tell you absolutely not. Go ask them if they're burned out with Nick Begich. They're going to tell you the same thing. Absolutely not. I 100% agree with you. What they're frustrated with and where they feel like they're just totally, they're fed up, they're over it, is exactly that. It's people who say that they're going to do something. They get down to Juneau. They don't do what they said they were going to do. And the whole thing just unravels.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the frustrating part, is when we see the same thing happening over and over again. And no wonder we feel like we're pounding our heads on the desks, when it's all said and done. Tell me about your vision for the state. Now, we are facing potentially, people say it's a good or a bad thing that the president is pushing for oil to be in the mid 50s. I mean, it's good for the economy. It's good for the people who have to buy gas and heating oil and everything else. Not necessarily good for the state of Alaska, because we're already facing at $65 a barrel. We're facing a $1.5 billion deficit. If it gets down into the mid 50s, as the president has been, targeting, we could be looking at a $2 billion deficit. That's a hell of a mess to try and inherit. What is your plan if that is the case? I mean, if we're supporting President Trump and we want to get the economy moving and lower heating oil and gas and oil prices, but that hurts the state, what's the plan for Bernadette Wilson as governor?
Well, the first thing is, I would argue that it doesn't necessarily hurt the state. I think that the low price of oil traditionally, one could argue that it has hurt the state, but we've also seen this total migration of people that have left the state. If we're doing this correctly, Michael, that means that we've got jobs that are being created. It means that we have people who are moving to Alaska. It means that they're buying houses. It means that they're starting up, the restaurants and all of the other businesses that would come to support that economic activity. And so there is this huge sidebar and side effect from getting these things developed and getting these businesses online. Obviously, any business owner would love to sell their product at the highest rate absolutely possible. But a lot of that is just basic economics of, the business owner is providing other jobs, and it is creating and contributing to this economy. So I would be remiss if I did not bring that up. But the thing is this: when you look at our budget, I mean, we spend I think it's 2.5 times the amount of money per people here than any other state. Our spending has been crazy for the last several years. I mean, and when I say last several years, I think I could go back the last, probably couple decades. We watched the state house this year pass a defined benefit bill. We have seen increase in education spending with no accountability, no results. So I'll be honest with you, when I hear this argument that the state is broke, the state doesn't have the money to pay for this, I question, is that accurate? And the reason that I question that is because the same individuals in Juneau can't afford a permanent fund, but then they'll turn around and they'll push for a $1,200 BSA and ultimately push a $700 BSA. So my apologies for looking at them and saying, hey, you're sending mixed messages, but it kind of makes you wonder, what does the legislature know that they're not telling us? Right. And once we get in there and we start diving into the state's finances, is it as dire as we think it is? Perhaps, but legislators have got to get their spending under control. We need a legitimate spending cap. People will tell me, well, we have a spending cap, Bernadette. Michael, that spending cap is so darn high, it's ridiculous. We might as well not even have one.
Right.
Okay, that's the first thing.
No, we got a spending cap that is, again, it's so far and beyond. And then every time they try and put a statutory spending cap in, of course, they ignore the law anyway. In fact, the last time they had a spending cap, a real spending cap that they put in, oh, this will take care of it. And by the end of that session, they had busted their own spending cap. So, I mean, there is no real, we need a constitutional spending cap that says, here's the hard limit. It can't grow beyond this. And that would be step one, in my opinion.
Oh, it is absolutely step one. The second thing that we can do is you look at the way that the state budgets. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to figure out how to get to zero-based budgeting. Maybe we take a 5-year rolling average. So that we have, my point there is we have a couple different options that I would argue are better than the way that we budget right now. When you have departments, and I'll just give the example of DOT. If you have DOT out throwing road salt down on the road because they're worried that if they don't use it, they will lose it, that's a problem. And we need to make sure that they know, we've got a better budgeting system in place to handle that. And so when you take, this idea of, well, are we really, broke or are we not? A legitimate spending cap would help. The way that we budget would help. And then I would make the argument we need to go in and we need to audit these departments. We have the highest rate of government employees per capita than any other state. Can we consolidate? Is there room to consolidate? That's the kind of the third piece of that.
Right. Well, I mean, and how many unfilled positions do we have? How many funded, FTEs, full-time, employee positions do we have that don't have people in them? I mean, at one point, the minority this last session and the previous session, they tried to eliminate a couple hundred positions that have been funded but unfilled for years. In one case, the position had been unfilled for 10 years, and we're talking about tens of millions of dollars. But the legislature is just like, no, we can't do that. We can't unfund. They may need that money. Well, if they need the money, they'll come back for it. If they don't have a position and it's not filled, maybe we should be putting that money to better use somewhere else or saving it.
Yes. No, our legislature has done a terrible job at not only abiding by a budget, but like I say, providing transparency and accountability. When you have unfunded positions, when you have unfilled positions that have sat there for 10 years and you're going to tell me you can't cut the position, that's ridiculous. And that is one very small example of why I say, do we have a deficit to the extent that they're trying to sell us the idea on? Or do they actually and truly know, well, it's not as bad and that's why we can get away with doing these things because actually we have all these positions that are unfilled. Actually, we have these areas over here. And so I really think that we need to jump in. We need to do an audit of our state finances. We need to do a DOGE effort of our state finances. And if there's nothing there and there's nothing to find, then quite frankly, everyone should be on board with the idea. I want to see Republicans come on board with the idea of doging the state. I'd love to see the Democrats come on board with doging it. And if there's nothing there to hide and we are really and truly operating state government at the most efficient levels possible, then you would have no problem saying, you know what, Bernadette, come on in, take a look, have fun, there's nothing to hide. When people start running from that idea, that's when I look at it and I think, okay, what are you hiding there then?
Well, I think everybody's worried about their ox being gored, right? I mean, that's the thing. Everybody's worried about, we've become such a dependency state in so many ways, both on the left-hand side of the political spectrum in the welfare state, where now we have 270,000 people who are on welfare, Medicaid, housing, all this other kind of stuff on the one side. And on the other side, we have the corporate cronyism of companies that have built entire business models around government contracts and government largesse and getting their spend in their multi-million-dollar telecom contracts and everything else. We've got both sides of the spectrum. We've become so dependent. The minute you start talking about something like doging the state or making any kind of cuts, any kind of substantive cuts, everybody, poops their collective drawers and said, no, we can't do that. We can't touch that's the problem. And again, it's the middle, the people who aren't on the welfare or who aren't part of the coal crony, capitalism thing. the cronyism thing, where they're the ones in the middle being squeezed. And that's why that's the largest slice of the demographic of the state of Alaska of people moving out, is that working class middle, because they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And I've had people tell me, Bernadette, I would be content to just get rid of the permanent fund as long as it means I don't have to have an income tax. Well, that's not the way the state is structured. The state is structured as an owner state. You're not just going to go clear out the permanent fund because for you personally and your own best interest, you don't want to have an income tax. I don't think that we need an income tax. I would absolutely oppose that 100% all the way. I think that we need to dig into state finances, but you hear these kind of competing ideas because I have heard from Republicans tell me, just give them the permanent fund, just take it. I would rather they do that than get to taxes. And I'm saying, well, that's a false choice between your PFD or you have to have an income tax. That's a false choice that Alaskans are being given. The reality is go in and get your budget lined out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but again, we're talking about a $2 billion hole at this point, and my fear is of course once they glom onto the rest of the PFD, because there's not much left of it. I mean, I've already made the prediction that I think that this may be the last year that we receive the PFD here at the $1,000. If we do get one next year, it'll be sub $500. And I think that would probably be the end of the PFD at that point. And the problem is, it's not a question of, oh, take my PFD just as long as I don't give taxes. They're going to take your PFD and then they're going to give you taxes based on the current trajectory.
I have told that to people who have said, just let them take the permanent fund. I've said, do you understand that that's your last barrier there? Now I will say, Michael, I'll make you a bet. All right. I actually think that next year's permanent fund will be bigger than this year's. And the reason that I say that is because next year is an election year. They will not get rid of the permanent fund in an election year. Will they get rid of it eventually? Absolutely, they will. Will they attempt to get rid of it if they get a Democrat in the governor's seat? If they get a weak Republican in the governor's seat, they will absolutely attempt to completely wipe that permanent fund out and make it nothing more than a page in the history books the minute that new governor swears in. They will get through their 2026 election. They will know that they've got the governor's seat secured for the next 4 years, and then they will move and they will hope that everyone just kind of becomes used to this idea.
Right. Bernadette Wilson is our guest candidate for governor. I would probably take you up on that bet because, and I agree with your reasoning that it's an election year and nobody wants to cut into the PFD in an election year. But again, $1.5 billion deficit next year, could be up to $2 billion if the oil price continues to crater down. And so without a huge draw from the from the CBR, which only has about $3 billion in it, and they have to leave $1 billion in there for they only have about $2 billion spendable. I don't know how you would increase the PFD based on what we're looking at right now. But I mean, there's a friendly bet. Maybe, but again, if it's not next year, it'll be the year after, right? I mean, the year after, because that's inevitable. You've seen what happened over the last, 8 years is we've slowly seen it just get chipped away. Remember last year, it was Gary Stevens who said, our fiscal plan is 75-25. That's the fiscal plan. As far as the split between the PFD and the government spend. And of course, this year it's 82-18, 83-17. So, I mean, what is it going to be the following year? It's not going to be long. We have to get our fiscal house in order.
Yeah, no, and that's why I say, I mean, I would, all but guarantee you that come the beginning of 2027, as soon as the new governor swears in, if it goes Democrat, if we get, brainwashed into thinking that it's an independent candidate, or even if we get a weak Republican who's not willing to go in there and do some really strong battle, that unfortunately will become a reality in the very near future.
Yeah. Bernadette Wilson, our guest candidate for governor. We're going to take a final break here. one more break before we run out the clock here with Bernadette. We'll be back with more here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break with Bernadette Wilson. I seen a couple people in the chat room have been talking about your time at AFP, Americans for Prosperity. So I don't know if you want to answer that or not, because again, there's some hard feelings, and Republicans are great at circling the wagons and shooting inward. You know what I mean? I've seen this happen time and time again where, and the libertarians, us libertarians are the same way. We always get into a group argument about who can out libertarian somebody else. You're not libertarian enough, but the same kind of thing. So can you tell me a little bit, or give me your commentary on the AFP thing? Because people are like, well, she's not conservative enough, or she is too conservative. What's your take on the whole AFP thing?
Well, the first thing is Americans for Prosperity fired me, okay? Let's just be very clear about that, all right? When I started working with Americans for Prosperity, I was upfront with them. There's some things that we agree on, and there's some things that we don't disagree on. When it comes to tax cuts, they've done an awesome job. I was upfront with them and said, hey, I battled against marijuana legalization, and Americans for Prosperity is very pro marijuana legalization. I was not. I was on the no side of that when that issue was here in Alaska. And so I was upfront with them on what our differences were. Those differences clearly got to be too much. After I was there for, I think it was just a little over a year. There are great conservative people there. I mean, some of my good friends who are some of the strongest Trump supporters that I know are there. I absolutely agree with them on education. I mean, Americans for Prosperity does a phenomenal job when it comes to education and school choice. All across the country, they're passing educational savings accounts. They most recently did in Texas and in Tennessee, both this year. So they do some great work. When Americans for Prosperity endorsed Nikki Haley, I was very adamant that, of course, I was a Donald Trump fan. And so we split ways. It was right at that time, actually,
right,
that they were making that announcement. And so, like I said, I agree with them on some issues. I disagree with them on others. Obviously, there was disagreements there enough that they felt like it was time to let me go. So there you go.
Yeah, no. Well, and different organizations, of course, the support and the battle, the Senate battle for Lisa Murkowski and stuff like that. I mean, there's, sometimes groups or organizations support somebody that you don't like. I could identify with most Republicans until, Mitch McConnell and company and some of these other groups come together and start supporting somebody like Murkowski, who is obviously not a conservative. And it's a frustrating thing to see these things battle out. We need a strong conservative force in our state, including in our in our national legislature, in our senators and our congressmen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know with Americans for Prosperity, they had other individuals, whether they were state directors or other people that were very strong Donald Trump supporters. And, I think the organization now even will readily admit that was kind of a big, one of the big breaking points for them. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's part of the problem. And I think people need to understand that, people can be part of an organization without necessarily believing in it all the way, or people can evolve. That's the other thing. What's the reaction? And I don't want to get too salacious here, but we're in the break. So it's just you, me, and 70 of our closest friends on the internet. But This thing with Landfield, I had to laugh when I saw it, and I was just like, oh. Now, from one perspective, and we're talking about these photos that were posted on a website for boudoir photos or whatever, but I think in one way it's, Oppo research was going to pull this stuff out anyway. I think it's great. I mean, I've got no problem with it personally, but I think it's good that people get it out early so that this is not the October surprise or anything. What's your reaction to that? Just for folks to know out there.
Yeah, it is incredible. I think they are. Anytime that I meet a woman that's got beauty and brains, I am completely impressed with her. And I want to use this as an opportunity. I will give a shout out to all the moms out there that have had their babies. I think are absolutely gorgeous. You all look gorgeous. God created a gorgeous human body. I absolutely love it. And I think it's, if you can put beauty and brains in one package, I recognize that is unique and usually catches a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm like, okay, bring it on. Whatever. To me, it doesn't matter. What matters to me is where the rubber hits the road. What's the track record? And I think you've got a strong conservative track record of pushing causes that I think I can get behind and support. And so to me, it was
for more than 20 years,
Yeah.
And the thing is this, Michael, when you've got a 20-year track record of fighting for traditional values and, parental notification of abortion and senior advisor to Nick and pushing back against COVID and holding Memorial Day events. And when you have a business record to back that up,
Hold on.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, we're back. Bernadette Wilson is our guest. I just wanted her, she's going to be able to finish her thought here. I think people can agree to disagree on certain things, but as long as the direction is always, we can fight amongst ourselves or fall down. And as long as we're falling forward and all moving basically in the same direction, we can disagree on the route to take as long as we get there, was kind of my comment to Bernadette. And I wanted to let you finish up your thought on that.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely agree. And like I said, when people ask about the Americans for Prosperity, I think that's what you're asking me about. I kind of giggle and say, well, they fired me. So eventually those conservative creds, whatever it was, didn't work out. So
I want to talk a little bit about, because we discussed it last time you were on. We talked about, and this is something I talked with Nick a lot about. We used to joke about the foundation of arithmetic, because arithmetic doesn't lie, right? Math doesn't lie. You can't keep spending more than you take in. With him and I, we were talking about at the national level, but here at the state level, we're facing some of the same things. We can't spend more than we take in, although that seems to be the trajectory that we're on. And so paint a picture for me and for the listeners of what a Bernadette Wilson administration would look like from a standpoint of, fiscal sustainability and solubility moving forward. What is the picture? What kind of math are you looking to bring to the picture here?
Well, I think some of those things that I pointed out to just here a little bit ago, we need to have a legitimate spending cap. So having that spending cap is kind of step number one, not this big, frivolous number that we're never going to meet. So that's important. I think that it's important that we look at the way that we do our budget, whether we go to zero-based budgeting, we take a 5-year rolling average. I'll have that conversation with the legislature. They can take their pick, but we need to have a conversation about how we budget. We also need to come in and we need to do a really strong DOGE type of style audit to our state finances. If we have positions, for example, that haven't been filled in 10 years, then we need to get rid of the position. We don't need the position. And so those are steps when you look at kind of 1, 2, 3, the spending cap, the way that we budget, and coming in and doing an audit. Those are where we need to start.
Do you have a vision of the state? I mean, I was mocking this the other day because there was a bill in the legislature to actually license interior decorators. Okay. Now, of all things, the fact that I would have to go to the state to beg a license to tell so that I could tell people what color their drapes should be or what color the carpet should be or what kind of paint. Is the taupe the best paint or should this crimson be on the wall or whatever it is? Now, I understand the justification was, well, there's federal projects and things that require a licensed interior decorator, and so we have to bring them from outside because we don't have any and blah, blah. But at some point, don't you just have to look at those guys and say, no, we're not interested in getting a permission slip to do anything in government. Isn't that kind of part of our problem where government is involved in every aspect of our lives? We shouldn't have to, as far as entrepreneurship go, unless we're cutting into somebody or doing something that's excruciatingly dangerous. Why should we have to beg the government's permission to participate in commerce in this state?
If you are going to decorate somewhere and they are concerned that you need to have a federal license, I mean, my response back to that is, well, can you look at somebody's resume and see if they're qualified? I mean, normally you could look through somebody's resume and say, okay, I think that they could probably handle the job if you're talking about some federal requirement, or they're going in to decorate some federal building. I don't know. They're going in to decorate whatever government property it is. But we're absolutely overregulated. And we went through this. You remember there was controversy a couple years ago over the board of hairdressers was the same way. There were people saying, well, I need a license to braid hair. It was quite similar. And so Alaska has this trend of kind of licensing and some of the most ridiculous things that we definitely need to get under control.
No, occupational licensing is a pet peeve of mine because, again, like I said, if you're talking about cutting into somebody or doing something that, could open them up to, I don't know, disease or I could see that. But again, this idea that somehow you have to get the government's permission so that you could tell people what color paint to put on the wall, that seems to me to be a little bit of an overreach, but people seem comfortable with it. And I don't understand that mentality. And maybe it's just a philosophical difference or not. But again, I think what we have in this state is not necessarily a Republican and Democrat problem. What we have, because there's plenty of Republicans, you hearken back to saying the spending over the last decade. Yeah, I mean, it was the Republicans who spent down $15 billion out of the CBR over the course of the teens in the last, just about 10 years ago. They were the ones that weren't stopping the spending and instead just backfilling it all with our savings, which now we have almost none of. So it's not necessarily a Democrat and Republican problem. What we have is a big government versus small government problem, right? We've got one philosophy that says government should be small enough to just take care of what it needs to do and nothing else. And the other side where government is the solution to any and all problems, even problems we don't know we have yet.
Yeah, no, and it was, 20 years ago or so, 15 years ago, the way that they were able to keep everybody working together was when the budget came through, whether you were Republican or Democrat, it was a Christmas tree. And, we used to look at all the different ornaments that they would put on. And that was the joke in Juneau, that how you got people on board was to simply hand out different things for their districts. And so, we saw it. Both sides contributed to it. I think that that's why here in Alaska, you see such a pushback on the Republican Party. There's a lot of people who say, hey, I am conservative. I identify as a conservative. I don't want to be associated with the Republican Party. And I understand that sentiment. I remember back far enough, if you haven't paid attention to politics for more than maybe the last 5 or 10 years, then you may not have as deep appreciation for that. But there were definitely several years there, as I know you remember, and that was how they kept everybody together. And people talk about how great Republicans got along. No, they didn't. They bought off each other's vote is what happened.
Right. And we see that a lot. We see that, kudos to Dunleavy, at least for that first budget where he came in with Donna Ardwin's help in the OMB, producing a budget that immediately, talking about your Doge thing, where people just, it's apocalyptic. That was words that were actually used. Apocalyptic, draconian budget, dogs and cats raining from the sky, children dying in the streets kind of thing. And it was that whole idea that somehow if we didn't spend, we were all going to perish. And like you said, they're buying off each other's votes. And even Republicans at that time, They didn't back the governor up because, oh, yes, we want cuts, just not my program, just not in my backyard, just not my. And the thing is, we're rapidly reaching a point to where there's not going to be a choice. There's going to have to be austerity, and it's going to have to, either we're going to choose how that austerity is laid out or it's going to be laid out for us.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I think that's the huge problem here. Okay, we're down to the last 2.5, 3 minutes here, Bernadette. So I want to give you the chance to, to sound off again. You've got this big kickoff rally happening in Anchorage at Keith Manternock's hangar at 3720 Belanca Way, Part B, Belanca Way B, Anchorage. It's Sunday, June the 8th. Doors open at 2. The program begins at 3. You said you got some big stuff to announce. I'll give you the floor here for the last couple minutes here, Bernadette.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to check out our website, BernadetteForGovernor.com, and definitely our social media pages, Bernadette for Governor. In fact, that event that you mentioned, that flyer is up there. It'll be a really great time. We've got a great lineup of speakers and entertainment. Doors open at 2. Program starts at 3. And as you mentioned, we've got a surprise coming that day. So should be a great time.
I can't wait to see what things are going on. All right, we got about a minute here. So I want you to I like to do this. This is the elevator pitch. Bernadette, you just stepped into an elevator with somebody who said, "Oh, you're Bernadette Wilson. You're running for governor." You've got 60 seconds or so to tell people why you're the best choice. And you got them trapped in the elevator for 60 seconds. Go for it. Tell me what it sounds like.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm the best choice, because I'm not a bureaucrat. And when we look at President Trump, we look at Congressman Nick Begich, people talk about my uncle, Governor Wally Hickel, and say he was one of the best visionaries that Alaska ever had. The reality is none of those individuals had a bureaucratic background. They didn't work for government. They didn't come up through government. Neither did Ronald Reagan when he ran for governor of California. History shows us that having someone from outside the system and someone with a business background, like I said, you look at Trump, you look at my uncle, you look at Nick Begich, and those strong business backgrounds have done great work for our state, and they've done great work for our country. We can absolutely turn this state around. I know we can. We've got to get someone in there that can do the job. So I'm committing to you that grit and determination to get in there and get it done.
Well, it's what we need. We need somebody who will tackle the fiscal bull by the horns and wrestle it to the ground, because otherwise it's going to gore the hell out of us. That's what's going to happen if we don't get a grip on it. Bernadette Wilson for governor, again, candidate for governor. BernadetteForGovernor.com is the website. Big shindig this Sunday. Starts at 2. Get more information at her website there. If you want to help out, you want to donate. I know folks are already doing that as well. Bernadette, thank you so much for coming on board. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we are out of time for today. We will see you tomorrow. All right. I think that wraps us all up here. Bernadette, any final thoughts before I let you go? I see you dropped off.
No.
I see you dropped off the video.
Thank you so much.
No, we appreciate you coming on board. Thank you for being part of it today.
All right. We'll talk with you soon.
All right. I look forward to seeing what's happening on Sunday. I'm going to keep my ear to the ground on that. I won't be up there, but we'll see. Thank you, Bernadette. Appreciate it. All right, folks. Well, that does it for us today. I'm looking forward to seeing what brings. I know that there's some people in the chat room who are a little leery of Bernadette. I think it's going to be a good opportunity. We'll see. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.